it looks like I can share my screen, so we'll see.
Okay, so welcome everybody. I want to present Miriam. She, well, everyone know her, but beside her membership at Young Israel, she's been sewing since she was 5, and she's creating quilts, Judaic, things like Israeli stamps, but recently she's very active in sewing those masks. And I let her speak about that and about all this long career or hobby, however you call it. So Miriam, we're waiting.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the people involved in setting this up. And I want to also thank Project Natan and Donna Lupatkin and Leah Solodolkin for a class they gave on using Zoom, which kind of gave me the courage to offer to do this. So on March 11th, Jeffrey and I were flying home from our winter last year in Boynton Beach, Florida. And we knew there were bad things going on, but we didn't quite understand how bad until kind of Shul and the world shut down a day and a half later. And I remember having a discussion with our daughter Leah about her son Akiva's upcoming bar mitzvah, Parshat Naso, on June 6th. And we both thought, this will be over by then. So not. And then when people started wearing masks in April, I watched a video on WhatsApp, and then Dr. Sanjay Gupta, one of my heroes on CNN, showed the same thing about folding a mask and putting ear loops, and it was really simple. And since I wasn't going out because I'm immune compromised by some medicines that I'm taking, I was like, okay, fine. I really didn't give much thought to masks until the summer when I started going to Shul in our sukkah at Young Israel. And then I thought, well, gee, I have a matching hat and I have a matching sweater or blazer. I really need a matching mask. So I started to make masks to match my my clothing. And so here's where there became an overlap between my interest in quilting and sewing and my interest in masks. So now I'm going to try to share my screen. You are screen sharing, it says. Okay.
See it.
We see it.
Working.
We see it.
Okay. All right. So, so this is what I've called my presentation, and really I was going to only talk about my Parsha masks, but something Yishai had asked me about kind of how I got into this made me think, oh, well, maybe I should include some quilt as well. And really it's about quilts and it's about fabric. So really my interest in making quilts started with this set of Israeli stamps. I've been interested in Israeli stamps since I spent a year studying in Israel. And this stamp right here with the crossing of the Red Sea really got me interested in learning. I just decided I needed to replicate this somehow as a quilt. So in fact, I did that. That stamp was from 1981, and I think I finished this quilt in 1983. And if you've been to my house, you've seen it. And this gold fabric that surrounds the quilt, you'll see that again. So this is a quilt that looks like I completed in 1987. It was based on a Machzor from Leipzig, Germany, a reproduction of which was in the library of Hebrew College. And the pasuk, the verse, is embroidered, hand embroidered. So that brings us to Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur is kind of where this mask thing started off. I decided that Jeffrey and I needed to have white masks for Yom Kippur. So, so this one was mine, and Jeffrey's was a similar white one. And, you know, again, I wasn't really thinking about a series or every week or anything, but it turned out that in my collection, I had these two wonderful fabrics. They're clearly by the same maker, they're the same design, but different colorations. And I said, oh, look, Sukkot, oh, look, Simchat Torah. So I ended up making this one for myself for Sukkot. And I think here you can see that there's a lulav and etrog near the bottom. And this very charming scene in a kind of medieval sukkah. And then I said, oh, okay, well, Simchat Torah. So I had the blue fabric, and I used that one, and you can kind of see some of the detail on that. It's really an incredibly detailed fabric. So in 2011, I chaired a convention of the Pomegranate Guild of Judaic Needlework, and this was our logo that was made by Seema Reinderman, who used to live in Brighton. And for pomegranate conventions, we usually have a challenge, and the challenge was to somehow speak to the theme in needlework, and the piece was supposed to be 18 inches square. So this was my piece, and I challenged myself. This is the first day of creation. I challenged myself to use fabrics that I had in the house and to make it in one day, which I actually did. So this gray centerpiece is like tohu vavohu, and the abyss, and here's darkness, and here's light. And if you look closely, some of these fabrics are going to show up again on my journey. And I think I have, yeah, this is a close-up of the center. And this is called, this quilting technique is called crazy quilting. Okay, so based on that, I thought, oh, well, gee, I could do something similar to that for masks. So that one was mine. And you can see the kind of the darkness, and here's the sun. And this was Jeffrey's. Got to choose, I think that was the only sun I had left. So he picked this fabric, which actually is in that little quilt that I showed you. So this fabric, this was a Noah's Ark that came from a whole piece of fabric which I had bought for another purpose, but which I'll talk about in a minute. But it was just a very, very charming fabric, and I had sent one of these masks to my daughter Chava, who's a teacher in Yeshivat Noam in New Jersey, and I had like a half of an arc left on that fabric. So Jeffrey got the half an arc, and he got the rainbow that was also part of that very same fabric. His half an arc. And I also had in my collection the dove with the olive branch, so I made that as well. So here's what I was saying. another opportunity that I had was an exhibit that was sponsored by Hebrew College just before they moved from Brookline to Newton. And the theme was covenant and community. And my entrance was this, I called it Covenantal Circle. And the folks on the outside came were the reason that I purchased that fabric that happened to have the Noah's Ark on it as well. So it's God's promise to make the Jewish people as plentiful as the stars in the sky and the sand on the beach. And again, some of these fabrics are going to reappear momentarily. So that was mine. That was for Parshat Lech Lecha. And Chava got a mask that shows this this fabric for her entire mask. That was my sand. And Jeffrey chose this wonderful fabric that was from that Covenantal Circle. And these are actually constellations. And if you look closely, you can actually see their names on the fabric. That's Cancer.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so so I had a kind of a dilemma with the next parsha. I wasn't sure how to depict it. My favorite verse from that is Lushi Vasiu Goat, where Abraham tells Sarah to make some cake, and some people interpret that as ugot matzot, as kind of Sephardi matzahs. But I had a consultation with Rabbi Hellman, and he said, yeah, sure, bread was good. And there's another verse where Abraham serves bread to the angels. So this was just amazing fabric. It has round challah for the high holidays, and it has braided challah. It looks like you could eat it. It's really nice. And I had texted a picture of this to Ava, and she said, "Nah, I don't think I want it. But that's okay. Never mind." So it turns out that when she walked into school without a Parsha mask, her class was very disappointed. So then I thought, oh, well, yeah, maybe I could kind of do this. And Irene Blechner was kind enough to give me some coloring book pages when my computer was down, my internet was down, my printer was down. Anyway, so this is the well from the next Parsha. And this was a wonderful little sort of cartoon, teeny tiny, on Chabad.org, where Eliezer is at the well, and Rivka offers him water and then offers to give water to his goats. And that's interpreted as her good character, like that she had good qualities to be a wife for Yitzchak. So I was very taken by this little drawing, and I ended up making that into a couple of masks. Initially, I was kind of hesitant to stitch on the mask, to do applique. I didn't know if it was going to let the virus particles through the mask, but I ended up using something behind the stitching. So I decided that was going to be okay. So now we're on to Parshat Toldot, where the birthright is sold for a pot of lentil soup. So these are 2 appliques that I did. And if you notice the lentil soup, that's going to reappear in another incarnation later on. So that's what it looks like as a mask. And really after appliquing the 2 masks, I told Jeffrey that he was going to get just lentil soup. So this was his, just the lentil soup. So moving on, this is the ladder going up to the heavens. Okay, so this is Jacob wrestling with the angel. Again, it's not my original drawing, something I found, I think it was on my Jewish learning. And I appliqued that. And I also did Kever Rachel. Jeffrey got Kever Rachel, and the package that I had sent to Chava with her version of this traveled for 2 months and finally came back to me last week or the week before. So that's what that one looks like as a mask. Okay, so so the next Parsha contains Joseph's coat of many colors. And this was one interpretation, which was actually the center was actually part of a dreidel that was part of another quilt, which if you're still interested, in a few minutes I can show you what it came from. But that was one version. And that's what that one looks like as a mask. And the other version was just stripes. So this one of these was the one that got lost in the mail that Chava didn't get. So the Joseph's coat of many colors. So these are the dream of the fat cows and the skinny cows, and the corn, the fat sheaves and the skinny ones. And this is magic marker traced onto fabric from a coloring book page. So this is an interpretation from this is the one that Chava got of also from Parshat Miketz, and this was the cup, the goblet that was hidden in Binyamin's knapsack. And I was gonna, I really don't draw, I mostly, like, as I said, trace from coloring book pages, but this was, I happened to find this sort of kiddush cup. It was actually on a piece of fabric that was intended as a Hanukkah fabric. So this is how this one came out as a mask. Okay, this is probably the the least obvious of the masks that I've done so far. This is for Parashat Bajigash, and it speaks to Yehuda pleading to bring Binyamin to their father, and he says nafsho kshura b'nafsho. So that's the kesher or the nod or the tie-in. So that's what that one's about. This is Parshat Vayechi, where the hands are crossed, and those are actually my hands. I put them on the photocopier on the printer, and I Xeroxed them, and then I reduced them, and then I made them into an applicant. Okay, so now we're done with Sefer Breshit, and we're on to Sefer Shemot. So this is the mask that Chava got, which has both the basket, which Moses was in, and the burning bush, because those are both important parts. Thought, well, okay, I'll do both. She's kind of my beta test. I end up doing hers first because I have to have them done in advance to mail off. So this was the Moses basket on hers, and this was the burning bush. And I ended up with this one for myself, which is a little bit simpler than the one I had done for Chava. And Jeffrey got the burning bush.
Oh no.
Okay, so now we're back 6 years ago, just as our Snowzilla 110 inches of snow is beginning, and Leah and Avi were here with their family for Shabbat, and Shimi had just started to study his bar mitzvah parsha of Va'era with his Zayda, with his other grandfather. And I said, okay, so Shimi, let's talk about what you want for your tefillin bag. And he was very definite that he wanted the 10 plagues. He said, well, 7 of the 10 plagues are in my parsha, so that's what I want. I was kind of taken aback, but I checked with Leah and Avi. They were fine with it. The Babi and Zadie were fine with it. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And I happened, as a collector of fabrics, somebody had once given me a little packet of 10 plagues, like little squares, maybe 3-inch squares of fabric. So we laid them out, and he showed me which ones he liked and which ones he didn't like. And wherever he didn't like something, I researched a little more, and these are the fabrics that ended up in the on his tefillin bag. This one must have been a 3-inch square because I had none of it left. And when I went to make the masks, I thought, oh, this is easy, but actually I didn't have any of that fabric left. So this is what I ended up doing for the mask. So you can see that a lot of the fabrics are the same. These are the first 7 plagues.
Oh, cool.
And since, and this is the one, you may remember this one from the lentil soup, but actually it was Shimi's choice for shrin for the plagues. And then for the last 3, Parshat Bo, so these are 8 and 9. And as I said, I didn't have that cute skull and crossbones. And part of when I realized this was going to be a series, I said, okay, I have to limit myself to only the fabrics on hand. So I actually kind of bartered with a friend. I had sent her some supplies, so she sent me back these sort of some ghoulish skeletons. So that was what I used for that. And Jeffrey got our back. Okay, so now we're up to last week, the crossing of the Red Sea. So this is, as I said, somehow ends up being the test one. So this was sort of three-dimensional with the sea. And this was Jeffrey's version. It was a little bit less work. For myself, so this was the invitation to my bat mitzvah, and it's based on a stained glass medallion that my mother had made before she was married. Her mother was named Miriam. I'm named for my grandmother, who I never met, and I kind of adopted this as sort of a business logo when I started teaching and stuff. So I've used this on in various ways, and I do have a wonderful vest that at the moment I can't seem to locate, but those of you who've been around Young Israel for a while remember that I shared a project of 6 panels of stained glass applique, and I had made myself a vest with this on the back that I wore to the dedication. Anyways, the best I could do was just to trace that. So that was my mess. Now we're up to today. This is, again, from that fabric, those fabrics that I showed you at the beginning. This is one of the masks, and this was Jeffrey's mask. Okay, so if you're totally bored, I can stop here, take questions. I have some more slides of Rosh Chodesh and Hanukkah, so if you're interested, fine. If not, I'm not insulted.
Let's go for it, Miriam.
Okay, all right.
More.
Okay, all right. So this was the first Rosh Chodesh mask that I made, and that went to Chava. And after I made that one, I found this much cuter fabric in my collection. So that ended up being Jeffrey's. Now, for the longest time, if you wanted Jewish holiday fabric, you were really, really, really out of luck. And gradually, there's been manufacturers have realized that, like maybe there's a little bit of a market here. So I'll come to some commercial fabrics in a minute. This was a quilt that I did for the bat mitzvah of a friend's daughter, a Tara Scheinson. And this was based on a pattern that was in a quilting magazine. And I decided to make it much more complicated, which meant that it took years until she got it. But these dreidels here were the center of the mask that I had for myself for Joseph's Coat of Many Colors, and there were sections left over here that I used for also as part of that mask. And these are all, these fabrics here are what are called decorator chintz. And I somehow managed to amass this really big, embarrassingly large collection, but I've really been enjoying them, and I've been, using them in the various projects and masks. This is another Hanukkah quilt that I made, and this is based on an irregular hexagon that tiles, and I had first drawn it. So I don't usually sort of sketch or doodle, but I happened to get this idea when I was walking to work, and I sort of doodled it on my blotter. And I first did it with the 8 at the bottom and the 1 at the top, and I said, "Oh, gee, it really looks like a Christmas tree. Never mind." So I decided, there's this principle which Rabbi Hellman talked about in one of the shiurim around Hanukkah, ma'alim b'kodesh v'lo moridim, that you sort of work your way up. And the other thing was, when I was a child, as many of us remember, there was only this color. This orange was the only color of the Hanukkah candles that were available. So I decided to start with that one, and then I used a rainbow of colors. This is a close-up, and all those, the Hebrew letters are hand quilted onto the on the quilt. And this outside fabric here, this binding fabric, is the original Hanukkah fabric, commercial fabric that I found. This is a close-up. This is a bed-sized quilt that I made with a technique that's called stack and whack. It's a really interesting technique where you take a very large design and you line it up in a stack, and so you end up with sort of concentrating the colors. This is what I'm sorry, it's not such a good picture, but this is what the entire quilt looks like. So each star is different depending on where it was cut out in the fabric. And I have this vest, and that's what the original fabric looks like. And that's a vest that I made from the leftover fabric. That's the front, and that's the back. And of course, I have a mask to go with it. And this is Chava's mask, which actually goes with a many years old vest that I made for her when she was still living at home and teaching at Maimonides. This is a more recent Hanukkah fabric. That's, it's like the Hallmark card series. So I was just kind of amused by it, but it happened to be the perfect size. When the pleated mask that I make, I start with about 7 inches by 9 inches of fabric, so it was just the perfect size to do that. So I couldn't resist. This is another fabric, commercial fabric that was meant, the manufacturer thought it was Hanukkah fabric, but this to me is the ultimate Havdalah candle. If you can see the braiding over here, I'm trying to convince the Havdalah band to have a sort of a uniform with something like this on it. And see, this is another of the candles on that mask. This is a quilt I made for Baruch Scheinson, the older brother of Tara, and the other quilt. And his bar mitzvah was celebrated on Purim Day, on a weekday, and the guests signed patches, and then I put it together. And the logo, this was the logo from the Bar Mitzvah invitation. And this is the vest that I'm wearing. This is this was actually supposed to be a Mardi Gras fabric, but sure, when masks were something you wore over your eyes, this was a perfect Hanukkah fabric. I'm sorry, Purim fabric. So I think in the next slide you can see that I actually machine quilted Hamantaschen over the on the vest. And I think, and this is my last slide, this is a commercially available Purim fabric. And this one, this was made to my daughter Leia's specifications, and hopefully this will get to New Jersey later this week. So I think that's it. How do I on-screen share?
Thank you so much. That was really interesting.
One more. So this is a back to the stained glass. This was these were some small pieces that I made for an exhibit that was called Pieces of Peace. And this is from Pirkei Avot, where rests truth, justice, and peace. And I used the colors of the rainbow to symbolize as another symbol. Okay. How do I, can somebody tell me how to unshare? Do I go new share?
Should say stop share somewhere at the top of your screen.
New share, pause share, how's that? Your share is pause. Resume. Oh, how about escape?
Miriam, while you're figuring that out, I have to tell you, I think you are blessed with amazing talent, and what you do beautifully, but also you're incredibly creative in how you think to present it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Carol.
It's very impressive. I love it. I love what you've done.
Thank you. Screen share. Stop.
I agree, Miriam.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi.
Find the fabrics when you're going to make mats. You find all these ones you have stored away.
I know, it's so fun. It's so much fun to say, oh, I remember that. Yeah, it is. It's an embarrassingly large collection, and I'm really trying to. Actually, the fabric that I bought for your Purim mask lab was so far the only one that I've actually purchased.
How long does it take to make a mask?
How long? I knew somebody was going to ask me that. Somewhere between an hour, if everything goes well, about an hour a mask. The time-consuming part for me is
The design.
is the design, like the idea, having the idea for it. That's what that to me is what's the most challenging part. So anytime anyone has suggestions for me, I'm more than happy to accept them. But I do rely on some coloring book pages and things that are out there in the webosphere or whatever you call it. So.
Miriam, how many layers are the masks?
They're all 3 layers. They all have, interestingly, Jeffrey's a physicist, and for some reason, all these papers cross his computer screen about the virus and the masks. And it turns out that what sewers call non-woven interfacing is actually very close to the material that's used in the N95 masks. So, so I'm pretty comfortable with the fact that they actually offer protection in addition to being, you know, fun. I don't know how to describe it. I get this sort of perverse pleasure from making these masks. Maybe it's like, I don't know, when a cook makes a meal and they're really excited about serving it. Sometimes, honestly, Rabbi Hellman is the audience of one because he's the only one. We've trained him to notice our masks. You know, I don't know, somehow in my mind, I'm going into the social hall for Kiddush and people are saying, oh, what a cute mask. And then I remember, oh, gee, the social hall is the shul and there's no Kiddush and can't eat. And I don't know, it's, you know, the expression when you get lemons, you make lemonade. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
You're doing it very well.
Thank you, Carol.
It's a great use of your time during the pandemic.
Yeah,
Great
thank you.
use. Yeah, good.
How's the snow?
Nah, well,
It's there.
you know, yeah, when I started this, honestly, I thought, you know, maybe it's worth it because maybe like when Noah comes around next year, we'll still be making masks.
Oh, gosh.
We'll still be wearing masks. And now I have like maybe a little bit of hope that maybe we won't be wearing them. But I don't know. it's
Hi, Miriam. It's cousin Janet, New Jersey. So good to see you. This was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, Janet.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Miriam, this was really wonderful. I appreciate that you invited me.
Thank you, Barbara.
And the thing I like to say, there's a light at the end of the tunnel and it's not the train.
All right. Well, let's hope. Let's hope. Yeah.
And I think we'll be wearing masks for a while. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, people had said, well, like, what are you going to do with them? And ultimately, I hope, you know, there'll be a day when we're not wearing masks and maybe I'll make them into some sort of a quilt or something. Although the pleated ones I can easily take apart and flatten, but the ones, I have a few different designs, but the ones that have the seam down the middle, the sort of beaked masks, those, I don't really know. If there's design on only one side, okay, I can deal with that. But when there's a design on both sides, I'm not sure what I would do with that. But so far, we're still wearing them.
Oh, yeah, we still wear them, that's for sure.
Well, the entire population of children who are basically petri dishes have no, vaccine in sight. It's, I guess, being developed, but so it'll be a while.
Being tested then developed.
It'll be a while.
Yeah.
Unless you feel comfortable, because you have your shots, to take off your mask with all of them running around, not me.
You can still get it, even if you've had your shots.
Yep.
That's the problem.
Yeah. Miriam, it was fantastic. Thank you so much. Just one question. Do you have some, it's a different style, just having the one straight across. You seem to have tucked in around the nose. Do you?
Oh, yes. So that's funny. You know, I don't know whether you call it, I don't know, bashert or what, but literally I was at a doctor's appointment and I was waiting and they said it was okay to use my phone. I had my smartphone on and literally this directions popped up on YouTube for that particular mask. It's a pleated mask, but it's the top pleat is inverted. So it has three pleats, but at the top it's kind of turned backwards, and then when you turn it on, it goes that way. So mine have what's called a nose wire, a little sort of it's almost like a zip tie, but it's heavier, and that's I like that. I find that my glasses don't fog up with that.
Like the rest was folded in. Does that? And I was wondering if that helped with the glasses and the fogging.
Yeah, it's supposed to help with the glasses. Jeffrey wears his his favorite mask is the beak design with the pleats at the sides. But when the design needs to be straight on, so I make the pleated mask with the inverted pleat, and he's not interested in the in the nose wire. If anybody's interested in doing this, the YouTube is full of designs. The one that the sort of rounded one that's flat is a variation of what's called the craft passion design that my daughter Shoshana developed for herself. And the beaked one that I like is a variation on what's called the Olson mask by somebody named Mia, M-I-A, who somehow I found on YouTube. And then there's this reverse pleated one. If anybody wants more specifics, I can email them. So.
Right. Thank you.
Fabulous, Miriam. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Thank you.
Recording it.
You want to give a promo for the next talk, Yishai?
Yeah, thank you very much. If anyone wants to speak about his hobby, hair hobby, or profession, or anything that's interesting, please let me know. Thank you, Miriam. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Yishai.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you, Yishai, for organizing. Shavua Tov, everyone.